Now, many observers say the Russian president has miscalculated with his aggression, but he's obviously not been stopped so far, has he? Well, now the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson set to unveil a 6-point plan to end the, quote, hideous, barbarous assault. He is calling for a renewed and concerted effort from the international community as he prepares to meet next week with other world leaders. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister is trying to play mediator between Moscow and Kyiv, while the US Secretary of State met his Ukrainian counterpart in Poland. We'll have a report on that from Natasha Bertrand in Brussels. But first, Hadas Gold from Jerusalem on Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's trip to Moscow.
This was an unannounced trip that the Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett took to Moscow on Saturday morning, where he met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin for 3 hours in the Kremlin. The diplomatic push took place with the blessing of the U.S. administration, the Prime Minister's office said, and was also coordinated with France and Germany. The Ukrainian ambassador to Israel told me that the Ukrainians were also given a heads up and were supportive of the meeting. Bennett also spoke with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky after the meeting took place, Bennett's office said. Bennett then immediately flew to Berlin, where he met with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Although Bennett's flight to Moscow was a surprise, it comes after a series of phone calls Bennett has been having with both Zelensky and Putin over the past couple of weeks. Zelensky has actually been asking the Israelis to act as mediators, even asking Israel to host negotiations in Jerusalem because of Israel's unique relationship with both countries. While Israel has condemned Russia's invasion and is providing Ukraine with humanitarian aid, Bennett himself has been avoiding direct criticism of Russia or Putin. Israel has sought to maintain good relations with Russia in recent years because of Russia's military presence in Syria. Israel needs Russia's tacit approval to conduct airstrikes against Iranian targets in Syria, which Israel regards as absolutely critical to its security. Although the pressure has been growing on Israel to do more to help Ukraine, Israel so far is maintaining its position, arguing that it should be used to help find a solution. Hadas Gold, CNN, Jerusalem.
Secretary Blinken was in Poland today, meeting with the Polish foreign minister and making a trip to the Polish-Ukrainian border, where more than 700,000 Ukrainian refugees have fled the war since it began just over a week ago. The Secretary of State expressed solidarity with the refugees who have fled, saying that the world is inspired by how they have fought against the Russians.
What Ukrainians are doing is inspiring the world. And the world is united in support of Ukraine and against Russia's aggression. And we are working very closely with our Polish friends.
Now, many Ukrainians are continuing to plead with the U.S. and NATO for more help, particularly when it comes to imposing a no-fly zone over Ukrainian airspace. But the Secretary of State said yesterday in remarks from the European Union that it does not look like that is on the table at this point, because that could create a direct confrontation between NATO forces and Russian forces over Ukrainian airspace and potentially spark a much wider conflict. Now, the prospect of sending additional lethal assistance to Ukraine remains on the table. They are continuing that. They are continuing humanitarian assistance to the Ukrainians. But President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine is telling them that he needs more fighter jets, he needs more support. Otherwise, the Russians could win this war. Natasha Bertrand, CNN, Brussels.